it appears as if those in Oklahoma view Josh Heupel as like a Mike Bobo or an Eli Drinkwitz, which he's a better coach than both those guys. Pull this clip up and set it up. What's it from, Caleb?
It's a podcast called Sooner Pod, but it's SCHOONER. They cover Oklahoma. They talk Oklahoma. And their consensus on Josh Heupel is so 180 from the rest of the country's consensus on Josh Heupel. And they were obviously, if you're an Oklahoma fan, you probably supported his firing in 2014. There's a lot there, but they had to say is intriguing, to say the least.
All right, go for it.
Let's.
Too worried. I don't believe. Right, some people believe the hype. Like, oh, this Tennessee looks scary. It's Tennessee, so.
Damn looks scary. That's wrong.
I mean, they did look scary though. Like
if they were that scary, their coach would be our coach because he desperately wanted to be. And we
bullied him out of town.
We ran him out of town because the last time our offense looked this bad was when he was running it.
It is true.
Well, yeah. I don't. Yeah. Well, that's a separate thing, right? I've long said that any OU coach who loses to Josh Heupel should be fired on the spot. No excuses, no, regardless of performance. But that's neither.
All right, that's enough. That's all I need. Okay, he said it. I don't know who that dude is, but include him on the repurposing and the Twitter because that guy just said that if Josh Heupel beats Brent Venables, that Brent Venables should be fired on the field the moment it hits zeros. That's what he said. No tarmac, none of that stuff, not going back to the office, not waiting on Monday, fired on the spot, perhaps shoot him in the leg. That's what he said, I think, right?
That's pretty much what he said. That's exactly pretty much what he said. And my mind is blown that he said it. Okay, there's so much to unpack here. Okay.
Okay.
First of all, if Josh Heupel wanted to be if Josh Heupel was so great, he'd be our head coach. Guys, y'all know the real story. I know you know it if you're covering Oklahoma because it came out of Oklahoma when it happened. So let me rehash this and defend Josh Heupel for a minute because, okay, I'll say this. There were moments where the offense really underperformed in 2014, and that's why he got fired. Let's break down what happened. Josh Heupel was coaching Oklahoma as the offensive coordinator. And in the 2012 Cotton Bowl, they got destroyed by Texas A&M and Heisman winner Johnny Manziel. It was ugly. It wasn't because of Josh Heupel. It's because the Oklahoma defense couldn't buy a stop. It was horrible, historically bad. Johnny Manziel torched them. Bob Stoops goes to Josh Heupel after the 2013 season when Trevor Knight actually has a really good season and there's very good promise for 2014. Bob Stoops decides, I want to run the offense Johnny Manziel runs. I want to do what Johnny Manziel did at Texas A&M and forces Josh Heupel to install RPO programs with Trevor Knight, which Josh Heupel did not want to do and was insisting to Bob Stoops he can't run this offense. So Josh Heupel had the RPO air raid forced on him in 2014 with the quarterback not fit to run it. Still had a top 20 offense, by the way. I believe top 10. It was a defense that was out of the top 50. And Oklahoma went, I think it was like 8-4, 9-4, got blown out by Clemson, and he gets fired. He gets scapegoated for an offense taking its dip. A dip that it took because Bob Stoops forced an offense on him that he didn't want. And it was still better than the defense, and Bob Stoops wouldn't fire his own brother as defensive coordinator. That's what happened. So before you guys, I mean, and that's the thing. Dave, they know that. They know that. If you're a Sooner podcast, you know that inner workings, don't you?
Well, I would think so. But I think it's easy to back a guy who's new. And then there's kind of like that peak where you start to doubt him. Like you played one. Who did we play earlier? I mean, there's always earlier this week, we played a comment from a coach, and there's that moment where you know that I think it was Shane Beamer. Was it maybe even last week? But you just
Shane Beamer, yes.
Yeah, you just know that he knows he's gone, and that's when he loses the fan base. And until that point happens, it's more fun for Sooner fans to be ignorant. But I'm telling you as objectively as I can, there is no one other than Brent Venables' wife who would take Brent Venables over Josh Heupel.
Nobody.
That is an absolute fact. Now, for those that say, oh, he's got orange on his podcast and he covers Tennessee, there is nobody other than a few people that really like Josh Heupel that should take Josh Heupel over Kirby Smart. If Kirby Smart said, I've always wanted to live close to the Smoky Mountains, well, it wouldn't be as entertaining, but you probably have a better chance of winning the championship because he's proven he can do it. So I'm not being homerish here at all. I'm just telling you that there is nobody in the nation that would take Brent Venables over Josh Heupel. And I know they're coming off, to me, a very hollow 10-win season, and they may well prove me wrong, but until they do so, based off the body of work, it would be insane looking at their resumes. We don't even have to project forward. Hypel's done enough compared to what Venables has done as a head coach, where it's not even close.
Yeah. Oh, it's not close at all. And this is the problem. This is what's so insane about what they're talking about. And guys, Dave, you and I have talked about this. Hypel is Brent Venables went so long without being a head coach for a reason. Hypel got fired and 2 years later was an offensive coordinator in the SEC, and 4 years later was a head coach at UCF. 4 years after he got fired as an offensive coordinator at Oklahoma, he was a head coach. That entire time, Brent Venables was a defensive coordinator at a multiple championship winning program and still never even got a sniff of an offer. Don't you think that's a red flag?
I think it's a red flag that Brent Venables was really never even considered head coaching material. Now, there have been a couple of cases in the past where that's happened. John Chavis was one. Okay, John Chavis didn't interview well. John Chavis was gruff, and people were concerned about how John Chavis would deal with donors, especially after those that remember the Johnny Majors fiasco in which he made every donor known to man mad. And I love Johnny Majors like nobody else, but he did. And then there was another longtime coordinator that never got his shot, I believe, because of racial reasons. And that was Charlie Strong at Florida, who was married to a white woman. I think old school guys that were in charge of universities did not give him a shot. I thought he should have gotten a shot about a decade before he did.
Yeah, he should have. And
what's Venables' reason? At least I can come up with reasons for those longtime coordinators not getting an earlier shot. Why was Venables at Clemson so long before somebody said, I think he's a good coach?
Yeah, my only question,
I really don't know. I'm asking.
I'm saying I think people don't think he can run a program as a head coach. And I mean, that's what, and by the way, we're seeing this now. Look at the offense. It's horrible. We talked about this yesterday with Will West. Defensive coaches, I'm not a wet blanket, like all defensive coaches are bad. They can't do anything. But I will say this, if you're building a program, you need creativity offensively, whether that be from your head coach or getting the right coordinator. I don't know. But Brent Venables right now looks more and more like a defensive coach, doesn't he? I mean, and that's the problem. Defensive coaches taking over smaller programs, or not smaller programs, but programs that are trying to take a next step. And Will's absolutely right. Unless you're Georgia, I say LSU, or Nick Saban's credibility at Alabama, where you can just land number one recruiting classes. You got to be creative offensively. He's not. Sorry, he's not. And by the way, he was never at a school that was. Clemson wasn't creative offensively, guys, over the last 10 years. They just happened to run the spread offense at a time where no one in the ACC did, and Tennessee fell apart, and that allowed Clemson to poach a lot of Tennessee prospects. It was a perfect match made in heaven.
Caleb Calhoun's going to tell you exactly why. Because the other thing that bothered me a little bit is that, and I've been accused of doing the same when Alabama was having their problems, but was the fact that they said Tennessee's Tennessee. So Caleb's going to tell us why Tennessee is a better program historically than Oklahoma. Bank on it, 30 seconds from Commercial Bank.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Why is Tennessee a better program right now, Caleb?
Tennessee is a better program right now because of NIL, because of recruiting locations, and because of their, honestly, not you don't like to go here, but they have a bigger stadium draw. Now that sounds so 90s because, you know, their stadium versus other SEC, it's like, oh, 100,000 and they don't have it. But that's not really as much a thing anymore with other schools having 100,000 everywhere. But I don't think Oklahoma has the same stadium draw. Now, historically, I give it up to Oklahoma. Tennessee, because, for instance, Texas should be a better program than Oklahoma. But Oklahoma has been so well managed over the last 50 to 70 years that they have the longest winning streak in history with Bud Wilkinson in the 50s. They won 2 titles with Barry Switzer in the 70s, I believe. And then they won one with Bob Stoops in 2000. So Oklahoma has had more success historically. But just because a program's had more success doesn't mean they're the better program with the better resources to win. Tennessee has the better resources to win. And right now, Tennessee's got the better head coach.